Right now, you are warm. You didn't kill anything for it. You didn't build anything for it. You just exist, and warmth shows up. There's a coat by your door that you never had to make. There's food in your kitchen that'll still be there next week. And outside, yeah, it's cold. But your biggest complaint about winter is probably the walk from a warm building to a warm car. Now take all of that away. No coat, no walls, no fire, no food is stored anywhere. Just your bare skin and a planet that has decided to freeze over. That used to be normal, not for one bad season, for hundreds of thousands of years. And somehow your ancestors made it. You are literally the proof. Let's be honest about what they were actually facing, because cold doesn't cover it. The last ice age peaked around 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. Ice sheets 3 kilometers thick sat on top of Europe, North America, and Asia. Sea levels were 120 meters lower. Entire countries were buried under glaciers. On the open plains, temperatures dropped to minus 40 degrees Celsius. And here's the uncomfortable part. Humans are not built for this. We come from Africa. We have no fur, no hibernation, no thick fat layer like a seal. Strip a modern person of their clothes in real cold, and they have hours, not days. Hours. Mammoths had fur and fat 4 inches thick. Cave bears could hibernate for months. The reindeer just walked south. Humans had none of that. On paper, we should have been one of the first things to die. Wrong body, wrong place, worst possible time. But we had something none of those animals had. A brain that could plan, and hands that could build the things our bodies were missing. That turned out to be enough. Just barely. It starts with fire. Everything starts with fire. By the Ice Age, humans had been using fire for at least 300,000 years. But during the worst cold, fire wasn't a nice extra. Fire was the whole thing. Archaeologists digging up Ice Age fire pits in Ukraine expected rough little campfires. Instead, they found carefully constructed hearths that burned at over 600 degrees Celsius. When the wood ran low on the frozen open plains, they didn't give up. They burned fat and bone instead. Fire gave them heat, cooked their food, hardened their tools, and added hours of light when the winter sun barely rose above the horizon. But here's the problem with fire. You can't take it everywhere. Step away from it, and the cold is right there. So they had to find another way to carry warmth with them. At first, clothing was simple. Animal skins are thrown over the shoulders. We know humans were skinning bears for their fur in northern Europe at least 300,000 years ago. There are cut marks left on bear paw bones, right where you'd slice to pull a skin off clean. But a loose skin is not a coat. It leaks heat through every gap. On a body in minus 40-degree wind, every gap is a problem. And then, around 30,000 years ago, something tiny changed everything. The bone needle. A sliver of bone or ivory, no longer than your finger, with a small hole drilled through one end. One historian called it possibly the most important invention in human history. And he's not wrong. Before the needle, you had a blanket on your shoulders. After the needle, you had a coat that actually fit. Ice Age tailors would layer up to 4 different animal skins: reindeer hide for the outer shell, Arctic fox for insulation, moisture-wicking underlayers right against the skin. The world's first moisture-wicking underwear, invented 30,000 years ago. By people with no electricity. Before heading out into the cold, they also rubbed animal fat, called tallow, over their exposed face and neck. Sealed the skin, held in heat, blocked the wind. Simple. A little gross, but it worked. Everyone pictures Ice Age humans hiding in caves. The truth is way more interesting. Out on the frozen plains of what is now Ukraine and Russia, there were no caves, and barely any trees. So they used the one thing lying around everywhere: mammoth bones. At a site called Mezerich in central Ukraine, archaeologists found circular houses built almost entirely from mammoth remains. Skulls and leg bones formed the base. Ribs and tusks curved up to make the frame. Some structures use the bones of over 150 individual mammoths. The most recent analysis dates the largest structure to around 18,000 years ago, right at the absolute coldest point of the Ice Age. They were literally building houses out of giants. And the design was clever in ways that surprise researchers even today. Many shelters had a cold trap entrance. The doorway was dug lower than the sleeping area. Cold air is heavy, so it sank into the entrance and stayed there, while warm air rose up to where the family slept. They figured out convection engineering tens of thousands of years before anyone wrote down how it works. They also packed gaps with moss and pine pitch and piled snow against the outside walls, because snow is an excellent insulator. Living inside a snowbank is warmer than standing in the open air. They knew this. We rediscovered it. Staying warm keeps you alive tonight, but winter's slower killer is hunger, so they solved it before winter arrived. When they made a big kill, a mammoth, a bison, a horse, they didn't just eat it. They saved everything. The cold did half the work, freezing meat naturally. They smoked it, dried it into strips, and stored it in underground pits where the frozen earth kept it safe for months. There's even evidence they sank mammoth meat into cold ponds to preserve it, a natural refrigerator 18,000 years before fridges. And hunting itself was organized in ways that would impress a military strategist. At sites in eastern France, hunters used fire and teamwork to drive entire herds into natural ravines, the same locations used over and over for tens of thousands of years. But the survival tool nobody talks about enough is this one: each other. Way more people lived under one roof than we would ever tolerate today. And that was the point. Human body heat is a real heat source when you pack enough people together. The person with a private room wasn't lucky. They were cold and exposed. In the harshest winters, it was usually the ones living alone, especially the elderly, who died first. Not because of illness, because there was nobody next to them. Sharing warmth was not a weakness. It was a survival strategy. Here's the part that should stop you cold. No pun intended. Neanderthals were physically better suited for the Ice Age than we were. Broader bodies, shorter limbs to conserve heat, bigger nasal passages to warm cold air before it hit the lungs. They had been surviving cold European winters for over 300,000 years before we showed up. And they still went extinct. The current research suggests that when temperatures became too unstable, not just cold, but wildly unpredictable season to season, Neanderthal populations, already small and spread thin, simply couldn't adapt fast enough. We could. Because we didn't just survive individually, we survived together. We planned further ahead. We built networks across hundreds of kilometers. We shared knowledge between groups. We imagined solutions to problems that hadn't happened yet. That imagination is the reason you exist. Here's what I want you to sit with. You have anxiety. Most people watching this do. You worry about things that haven't happened. You stockpile. You plan for worst cases. You lie awake running through scenarios at 2 a.m. Modern psychology calls this a disorder. But that exact pattern, scan for danger, plan, prepare for the worst before it arrives, never assume the food will still be there tomorrow, that was the entire reason your ancestors survived. While mammoths went extinct and Neanderthals disappeared, the anxious, over-preparing, always planning humans were the ones who made it to spring. Every winter that should have killed them. You are not a person with an anxiety problem living in a comfortable modern world. You are the result of hundreds of thousands of years of the most relentless survivors this planet has ever produced. It is the oldest software in human history, still running, still keeping you alive, even when the thermostat works perfectly. And if you liked our content, share the video, like it, and subscribe to the channel.